Testing, testing. Okay, here we go. It's May 22nd, 2023. Attempt for the world record. Here we go. Dear players, we see that you have many questions and observations about the economy and the progression in work in War Thunder. Career units that... Dear players, we see that you have many questions and observations about the economy and progression in work in War Thunder. Kirill UNICEF, Creative Director of Gaijin, is best suited to explain all of this. Player progression is essential. You can't give a player everything at once because it will overwhelm and make the game very difficult for them, and they will leave it either immediately or almost immediately. This has been tested by us in many different ways. When applied to the game, later vehicles are almost always more difficult to learn and play tactically in the controls and with its capabilities. Progression provides opportunities for gradual learning and engaging the players. Without it, the game will lose players right from the start. In addition, progression serves as one of the basics of how a game makes money. Basically, players pay for acceleration of progress. The fundamental difference between paid games and free-to-play games is that you don't have to pay to play free-to-play games, and most players don't actually pay. Most War Thunder players, about 80%, have never paid a dime into the game, whilst playing for months or years. Many of those players who have paid for something in the game don't pay every month, and sometimes not every year either. Nevertheless, all the maintenance to the game, or all of its development, service and support is provided by those players who pay. In any game, players who play only when they have fun, but in a free-to-play game, players only pay if the game really entertains them. The player is already playing, already having fun, and pays if they want to support the game or try something new, which is at the same time not necessary to enjoy the game. Otherwise they would just quit and not pay at all. Hence the unobvious conclusion: the less you have to pay the game, the more differently priced paid options it should have, so that those who can afford it can spend more, and those who can't or don't want to can play for free and have fun. Oh, fucking hell. There's so much more. There are many progression and economy options in free-to-play games. Not all of them are suited for our game, because War Thunder is about real combat vehicles, which are not all equal, differing in power and capabilities. To quickly and roughly summarize the general principles of economy and progression in our game: vehicles should be unlocked gradually from simpler and older to more complex and later. The total time to get first top vehicle should be balanced, not too long, not too short. Number of game hours. The player should at the beginning of the game route, while mastering the game, get in new in-game equipment often enough. The game... Where did I lost my player? The game has enough money, otherwise it will be closed, and it will make money without a paywall, so you can play indefinitely without paying anything, so there is no deception that the game is free when it is in fact not. Income should provide everyone the opportunity to play the multiplayer game with multiple modes and features. Progression and economy should, as far as possible, provide a variety of vehicles encountered in battle, otherwise it is just boring, i.e. there should be not too many farming vehicles, especially if they are statistically stronger in battles, otherwise the same popular vehicles will appear in battle. If in a game with so many vehicles and modes, it's impossible to manually adjust in-game economy. It's important that it obeys specific rules, and manual changes that to them would skew a vehicle's effectiveness, making some vehicles, quote, bad and others better than average, and thus affecting their occurrence in battles. On the basis of these, economy is adjusted algorithmically based on statistics. About once every couple of years, we revise it globally as new vehicles are added into the current trees, and the rest of the time, to a lesser degree, correct the economy using accumulated statistics. The current progression and economy system is not the only possible system for the game economy principles. There are only, for example, systems based on randomness or exchange of virtual objects between players. However, without considering the limitations on platforms associated with these options, any such significant changes are unlikely to be well received. After all, our community is formed of people who accept the current economy and progression in basic principles, or rather they may even like it in general. So it turns out that the main factor, key parameter that we change without significant harm to the game or the players. The revision of the total time to reach the top and get to the whole line with some similar tweaks like modification, reset speed, balance of repair, gain, and so on. We have already done this kind of a revision of 3 times, and it's probably time for the next one. This work takes many weeks, so we will probably show the plan changes in the second half of the summer. We are no doubt open to suggestions, and we have many of our own, but we will but we doubt that a complete transformation of progression into something completely new will be adjusted by many players. No matter how much we would like it to do it ourselves, we'll still try to come up with something new in progression, and we'll likely consider all of your suggestions. Separately, a few words about review bombing as a method of communication. Hang on, I forgot to do this bit. Changes in version 10.17. The CPU no longer overheats when you hold down spacebar. This update broke my workflow. My control key is hard to reach, so I hold the spacebar down instead, and I configured Emacs to interpret a rapid temperature rises control. That's horrifying. Look, my setup works for me. Just add an option to re-enable the spacebar thing. Oh my god. Separately, a few words about review bombing as a method of communication. As our players know, we'll repeatedly reverted both planned and already released large and small changes, including economy and progression due to threads on Reddit, where much of the Western English-speaking community communicates, and with the threads on the forum and comments to articles on the site. We value our players in the game, not our updates and changes. If we know that the majority of the community don't want an update, we cancel or revert it immediately. Even if some parts support and some parts opposes, we prefer to collect conservatively, do no harm principle, keeping the current status quo. Of course, a review on Steam is also a platform for expression. However, the majority of new players just look at the score evaluation and do not read the text reviews and do not go into what they were left for. So review bombing does damage to the game, and the players simply won't try it. While it does raise the awareness of the problems you've noticed, if your goal is to not hurt the game, please use other less destructive ways. For example, leave feedback in our forum and suggestions specifically about the economy, where we are inviting in the feedback form. Also, review bombing will not cause modifying or nullifying in-game prices. If the game is shut down, no one wins. Radical, revolutionary changes in games that have been around for years are always very difficult to make because they will almost certainly break gameplay for a significant part of the players. We try to proceed according to the principle do no harm and change the games carefully. However, if a topic receives a lot of support from the community, we do everything possible to support the players. We commit to follow the feedback even more carefully in the future and take it into account when defining our plans for development of the future. If you still have any questions, ask in the comments, and in the future we will try to clarify any unclear points. Time. I think that was world record. We had a bit of a stumble at the English-speaking Western, I think we absolutely smashed it. Well done, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Woo! Woo!